we have 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. These are like terms, and these are like terms. Now these are like terms because they both have root 7. But remember, when we add the root 7 together, we're really just adding 3 plus 4. And 3 plus 4 is 7. So the other parts don't change. And then we have negative 5 and negative 6, and that's negative 11. Okay, let's see. We have, these are like terms here. So I have a root 5 like term, and the coefficients are positive 4 and negative 7. So 4 minus 7 is negative 3. And we have these two like terms, which are root 2 terms. And we have a negative 3 and a negative 6, and that's a negative 9. We have a set of parentheses here, but notice the number in front of this parentheses is 1, and the number in front of this parentheses is 1. And because of that, then we can solve this assuming that there's no parentheses to begin with. So if I were to rewrite this by distributing 1, I would get 4 root 3 minus 5 plus 7 minus 9 root 3. And 4 root 3 and 9 root 3 are like terms, so it's a root 3 term. 4 minus 9 is negative 5. And then negative 5 plus 7 is plus 2. For D, we need to distribute first. When we distribute, notice that this is one number. This number is 4 root 5. The only number that you are going to multiply 3 by is the coefficient of root 5. So kind of think about this as almost like 3 times 4x, because the root 5 can't be multiplied by 3 because this 3 doesn't have a root. You can only multiply roots if they have the same root. So 3 times 4 is 12 root 5. 3 times negative 6 is negative 18. Now realize this is a negative 2 we're multiplying. So negative 2 times a positive 10 is negative 20. And negative 2 times a negative 9 is positive 18 root 5. So now we have like terms 12 and 18 is 30 root 5. And negative 18 and negative 20 is negative 40. For this, we need to distribute the negative 1. So we get 9 root 2 minus 3 root 5 minus 7 root 5. And a negative times a negative is positive 2 root 2. So my root 2 terms, I'm going to add 9 plus 2, and we get 11 root 2. For my root 5 terms, I'm going to get negative 3 minus 7, which is minus 10 root 5. Molly tried to simplify this expression, but her teacher marked the question wrong. Here is her work shown below. What did she do wrong? And let's correct this. So let's take a look. We are adding 2 square roots. So she added 12 plus 24. And unfortunately, we don't know that these are like terms. You can't add them together, right? If this were being multiplied, we could multiply 12 times 24. But when we are adding radicals, we have to have the same number underneath the root, and we have to have the same type of root. So if this was a cube root, and if this was a square root, then those would also not be like terms, because the cube root of 5 is a different number than the square root of 5. So the square root of 24 and the square root of 12, those are two different numbers, okay? So we cannot add roots unless the root and number under the radical sign are the same. Okay, so let's see what we can do. Root 12 is really 4 times 3, plus root 24 is really 4 times 6. So this becomes 2 root 3 plus 2 root 6, and that is as much as we can simplify, because even though I have square roots, this is root 3 and this is root 6, so they are not like terms, so we cannot add the coefficients. We would just have to stop there. Okay, so we have 4 terms right now, and I don't really know if any of them are like terms, so we're going to simplify. So 12 is 4 times 3, minus 8 is 4 times 2, 75 is 25 times 3, and 98, I'll be frank, I don't really know off the top of my head. Divided by, 49 times 2. Okay, so I have all my perfect squares. I have the square root of 4 is 2, root 3 stays, minus square root of 4 is 2, root 2 stays, square root of 25 is 5, root 3 stays, and the square root of 49 is 7, and the root 2 stays. So I have 2 root 3 minus 5 root 3. So my root 3 terms, I have 2 minus 5, which is negative 3, and then negative 2 and a positive 7 is going to be a positive 5 root 2. This is negative 4 times root 49 times 2 minus 2 plus 3 times root 25 times 2 and then plus 5. So this becomes negative 4, and then this is a 7. So I'm going to put parentheses here because we're going to multiply that 7 root 2. The 5 and the negative 2 become a positive 3, and then this becomes 3 times 5 because the square root of 25 is 5, and then the root 2 is still there. So I have negative 28 root 2 plus 3, and then plus 15 root 2, and negative 28 and a positive 15 is negative 13. So we have negative 13 root 2 plus 3. This is 5 times 2 plus 3 times 7, so that's 10 plus 21, which is 31. Here we need to distribute. Okay, now this has the square root of 2, and we cannot simplify that with the 4, so the 4 stays. However, when you have a square root multiplied by a square root, we can put them underneath the same radical sign. All right, so because both of them were square roots, we can do that. If one was a square root and one was a cube root, we cannot do that. So this is minus 3 root 2. Now we're going to distribute the 3. 3 times 10 is 30. And then again, we're multiplying here, but 3 can only be multiplied by the coefficient because it doesn't have a root. So this is minus 27 root 10. So I have 4 root 10 minus 3 root 2 plus 30 minus 27 root 10. I have 2 root 10 terms. 4 minus 27 is negative 23. Minus 3 root 2, there's no other root 2 terms. And then plus 30, and that's all we can do. Now these are both cube roots. All right, so this works a little bit differently. We have, let's see, 128, the perfect cube of 128. So what do we have? 3 cubed. All right, this is going to be 64 times 2 plus the cube root of 27 times 2. So then what we're left with is the cube root of 64 is 4, but there's a 3 out here. So this is really 3 times 4, and then the cube root of 2, plus the cube root of 27 is 3, so that comes out, and we're left with the cube root of 2. So notice we have 2 cube root 2's, so those are like terms. And this is 12 cube root 2 plus 3 cube root 2. So 12 plus 3 is 15 cube root of 2. For the next one, we are going to distribute. When we multiply these, the negative 3 doesn't have a root symbol, so there's nothing we can do with that. But we can put, since both of these are square roots, we can put the 6 and the 3 under one root. And here I have a negative times a negative, so it's going to be a positive 3. and then root, and then I can combine these to 6 times 6. So this becomes negative 3 root 18 plus 3 root 36. So this is negative 3, this is 9 times 2, plus 3 times 6, square root of 36 is 6. So this is negative 3, square root of 9 is 3. This becomes 18, so the final answer is negative 9 root 2 plus 18. You need to be careful when you're multiplying here because we need to distribute. So we're going to distribute the 4 times 4, and then the 4 times a positive root 2, and then negative root 2 times a positive 4, and then negative root 2 times a positive root 2. So this becomes 16. These, oops, sorry, this should be a 2 here. These two cancel out. That equals 0. We have a positive 4 root 2, a negative 4 root 2. And then when we multiply these, we just get 2. So this equals 14. Here we're just subtracting, so we just need to distribute. So we have 4 plus 3 root 2 minus root 8 plus 5, because negative times a positive is negative, negative times a negative is positive. 4 and 5 is going to be 9, plus 3 root 2 minus the square root of 4 times 2. So that's 9 plus 3 root 2 minus 2, square root of 4 is 2. Still have a 2 left over. So that's 9. 3 minus 2 is 1. So that's plus 1 root 2. For 12, that's going to be the square root of 4 times 3 plus 2 square root of 16 times 3. And then minus, for this root on the bottom, what we're going to do, the square root of 1 is just 1. And we have the square root of 3 on bottom, and we're going to rationalize by multiplying by root 3 over root 3. We come back, square root of 4 is 2. And then we have 2 times the square root of 16 is 4. Root 3 left over. Over here we have minus root 3 on top, and then on the bottom we have a 3. So this becomes 2 root 3 plus 8 root 3 minus, this is the same thing as 1/3 times root 3. So we have 8 plus 2 is 10 minus 1/3. It depends on how you want to do this. So 10 minus 1/3. You could do 9 and 2/3 root 3, or you could put that in your calculator, the 9 and 2/3 part, and you would get 9.67 root 3. All right, last one. This one at a first glance, a lot of people want to say, oh, that's just 3 squared, and that's negative 2 root 2 squared, but unfortunately this is a binomial, so what this really looks like is 3 minus 2 root 2 and 3 minus 2 root 2. So anytime you square something, you're multiplying by itself. X squared is x times x. 4 squared is 4 times 4. 3 minus 2 root 2 squared is 3 minus 2 root 2 times 3 minus 2 root 2. So we need to distribute. 3 times 3. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. Can't do anything with the root 3. Negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. Can't do anything with the root. How did I get a root 3 here? This should be a root 2. Gosh darn. Keep doing that. So 2 times 3 is negative 6. And then we have a root 2 left over. And then this guy is going to be negative 2 root 2 times negative 2 root 2. So we are left with 3 times 3 is 9. These combine to be negative 12 root 2. Now this is trickier. We're multiplying here. We can multiply the two numbers together. 2 times 2 is a positive 4. So we have a negative 2 times a negative 2, which is positive 4. And then we have root 2 times root 2, which is 2. So then we get 9 minus 12 root 2 plus 8. 4 times 2 is 8. 9 plus 8 is 17.